Please welcome the co-founder and CEO of Global Citizen, Hugh Evans, and His Excellency Lazarus Chakwera, President of Malawi.
Good morning, and it's my distinct honor this morning to be joined by His Excellency Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, the President of Malawi. Let's give him another warm welcome. Mr. President, the last time we were together was just after Cyclone Freddy hit Malawi and caused a devastating toll on the country. And I remember we spoke just after that had occurred, and you spoke so passionately about how your country tackles the dual challenges of both the immediate recovery, which is in itself so phenomenal, as well as managing the debt crisis that occurred immediately after that. When you think about, as the president of this great nation, what can financial institutions around the world, as well as the global community, do to support you in times of crisis?
Thank you very much. And I'm very appreciative of the support that we get. And people like yourselves, worldwide, concerned people for Malawi. Cyclone Freddy came on the heels of Cyclone Ana and Gombe, and then Idai and others. And you have had this type of climatic issues when Malawi didn't hardly contribute to any of the carbon emissions, just like most countries in the development world. But for us, it's not just getting the emergency relief that we need, which is very critical. It is actually to see how best we can build resilience, how we can reconstruct in order for us to be sure that these occurrences are here to stay, and what do we do about them, and to be able for us to restore ecosystems, biodiversity issues, not just the infrastructure. But critically, what has happened is most of the food production has been disrupted. And so you want to venture into areas where food production becomes paramount for the people. And you want to make sure that infrastructure that has been destroyed in terms of schools and hospitals and roads get restored, but rebuilding in a way that prepares for another catastrophe.
Right.
So sustainability of whatever it is that you want to do, the interventions that you want to have, need to be built in.
Yeah.
It's not just a matter of getting the assistance you can get, but to be able to be sure that you are building for sustainability. Even in energy transition issues, where we want to go green, we must do it in a way that is sustainable and people can afford that. Now, that's where we need help, because much of the promises sometimes that get made take long to be fulfilled. And then the architecture in terms of financial assistance, sometimes this drags on and on and on until you say, well, it's no longer an emergency you're responding to.
Right.
So we need to be able to talk together and say, how can we collaborate and facilitate that collaboration so that we have the desired intent? Because year after year, you can't be declaring, like I have been doing, state of disasters.
Right.
We need to be able to stand in order that we can face the future with more resilience.
Absolutely. And Mr. President, it's not every day that we have the privilege of meeting a head of state from the African continent that also has a Southern accent. I think it's pretty rare. Can you tell us, I'm sure everyone's fascinated as I am, tell us a little bit about your background, because I think we're all in awe of you as a leader, but we'd love to hear a bit more about how you grew up.
You know, first time I came to the United States in the 80s, and somebody said, "Do you come from the South?" I misunderstood the question. I said, "No, I come from the central part of Malawi." And they said, "How long have you lived in this country?" I said, "I'm just coming in." So it just talks about the way that I was raised and influence of some missionaries and teachers that had on my life in the early days of my development.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, so Mr. President, you mentioned earlier, and I like what you said, Malawi has done very little to contribute to global emissions, and yet clearly with Cyclone Freddy, and you mentioned other cyclones prior, climate change is having a disproportionate effect on your nation. What role do you see in Malawi and other heads of state advocating for true climate justice?
You know, issues of loss and damage must be taken seriously. Climate justice, we're not just talking about being empathetic and being sympathetic. It's not even something that somebody should, well, maybe they should feel guilty about. So that they are able to do what is needed. We need, even when we have conference or parties talking year after year, meetings are good, but you need to have outcomes.
And do you find that they have the sort of outcomes, or do you find it really is?
You know, we're moving too slow.
Yeah.
Because those that need help need it now.
Yeah.
Not several months or years late. And sometimes it has to do with legislation and policies and so forth, but to keep looking at the small print rather than do what you need to do, that is to pay up, because that is what the justice demands. This is what we need to emphasize as leaders, to say, please, it's not a matter of charity, it is a matter of climate justice.
And do you find, well, firstly, I think I love what you just said, so I want to give you a round of applause. On the issue of loss and damage and on the issue of financing for climate mitigation, practically speaking, you mentioned that nations are very much in arrears in terms of their payment. Do you find that as a nation managing your national debt, that the promises made at a COP actually translate into real financing at a local level?
You know, when you're having to deal with so much debt, and a debt that kind of zaps your strength, you want to be involved in those issues that will help you produce more.
Yeah.
And so the investment, even when you're talking about transitioning into clean energy, the investment needs to be such that it will help our nation produce more rather than rely on, debts and or charity, like I said. When we are given that chance to produce, so that we are not taking monies, paying off interest, paying off debts and stuff, but we're using that money for development, then we can rise. Then we can be self-reliant. Then we can be developed.
So building off this idea of then you can be developed, I've always been fascinated with this idea that as the head of state of Malawi, the dreams and aspirations of everyone of your country rest on your shoulders. When you look at the pathway towards economic development, what are the most important priorities that you're championing domestically to alleviate poverty?
So Malawi 2063 is a vision that sees Malawi as a self-reliant, industrialized, all-inclusive type of wealth creation society, upper middle income. But we have a 10-year implementation plan, and then we have a strategy. I call it an ATM strategy. So we have agricultural production, productivity, value addition, and so forth, manufacturing. Then you have tourism, because Malawi is the most beautiful country you can ever visit.
So we should all come to Malawi?
You bet. And so, and beautiful lake and clear waters, hills and valleys that you would just stand in awe. And then mining. And mining rare earth, minerals, rutile, graphite, needed for the green transition. We have it. And so these are the things that we're emphasizing now in order for us to move away from subsistence to where we are creating wealth and producing more food so our people can be serviced well.
Well, Mr. President, thank you for your time this morning, and most importantly, thank you for your leadership. It's an honor to speak with you today. Ladies and gentlemen, President Chakwera.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.